Orb Chapter 3 is about to start, but real quick I want to tell you about my book of Dragons and Men. This is a Christian anthology. 7 literary works, poems, proverbial sayings, short stories, that sort of thing that I have carefully written that is meant to identify sin's cure, the hope that we have all through Jesus Christ. Now, it is available for $8. That's at cost, $8 on Amazon, or you can get it free on patreon.com. Links are in the description. God bless. On with Orb Chapter 3.
Orb, a sci-fi story for kids.
Chapter 3. The tough stuff of cheating and secrets. Theo set out to teach the orb more words the next day. He still wished to communicate with the orb and find out what he was and where he came from. Silas had come over after school the previous day, and he did play in Theo's room, but thankfully for Theo, the orb was shy and hid in the closet. Theo prayed for wisdom that night. He hated keeping such a big secret. Theo was full of fear and guilt and confusion, so he prayed until he had fallen asleep. When he woke up, he made sure to finish his chores and schoolwork as fast as he could so he could have as much time in the sand at the big school before classes were finished. M-A-M-A spells mama, said Theo, and P-A-P-A spells papa. The orb wrote the 2 words in the sand. Great job, Ball. Now do you have a mama and a papa? Asked Theo curiously. The orb nodded. What do you call them? The orb hovered over the word mama and made a sharp buzzing sound. Psst, asked Theo. The orb nodded. Then he floated over the word papa and made a humming noise with the sound like the letter R. Asked Theo. The orb nodded again and floated around in a circle, looking quite happy. Where are your bzzzt and asked Theo. The orb looked up, changed color to look like the night sky. In space? The orb nodded and hummed. On another planet? Asked Theo. The orb bobbed up and down, and then changed color to be a dark green with what looked like small white clouds. Is that the planet where you are from? Asked Theo, feeling very excited. The orb motioned yes, and then it made a distinct humming sound, as if naming his planet. It's called Marl? Theo asked. The orb turned upside down and mimicked Theo laughing. Apparently Theo didn't say that one correctly. Ha! Maybe that's a bit of a tricky one to say. Let's try something else. I'm 9 years old. Theo wrote the number 9 in the sand. Then he drew 9 lines to show how much the number represented. A year is how we tell time. It's how long it takes for the Earth to do 1 full orbit around the sun. The sun is the big fireball in the sky. Theo pointed to it. And a year is 365 days. He drew that number in the sand also. A day is 24 hours and is how long it takes for the Earth to do a full rotation on its axis. Theo stood, looking at all he had written in the sand, and hoped the orb would understand it. I'm 9, he said. How old are you? The orb wrote the number 5 in the sand. You're 5? Shouted Theo. You're just a kid. The orb turned from left to right, saying no. He then hovered over the sand for a while, seeming to be thinking about the answer. And then he wrote the number 1 in the sand. Is that a day? Asked Theo. The orb motioned to say no. A year? The orb nodded. You're only 1 year old? Shouted Theo. The orb turned a shade of red and then turned from side to side. He then hovered over the number 1 and changed his colors to look like his planet again. 1 year for Marl, said Theo. The orb turned back to green and then took time to write the numbers 6, 9, and 0 next to each other. The orb then did a full spin. 690 spins? Orbits! 690 days? Theo asked. The orb nodded with excitement and hummed. 1 year for your planet is 690 days, asked Theo. The orb turned white and bounced up and down happily. "Oh, so how old would you be here, like on Earth?" asked Theo. The orb was silent. "I feel like there's a way to do this with math. I guess Mama could help us figure that one out. Let's head home soon. But one more question before we do. How did you get here?" The orb flew up high into the air and then back down. "Careful, buddy," Theo said sharply. "Don't go too high. Someone might see you." "So you flew here?" The orb nodded. "Wow," Theo said as he sat back and looked up at the blue sky. "Why did you come here?" The orb turned yellow. "You were afraid?" asked Theo. The orb came close to him and nodded. Theo realized before he was scared of the orb, but he had never thought of being scared of where the orb had come from. "Should I be afraid too?" asked Theo. The orb hummed and then turned from side to side. He changed his looks back into a soccer ball and landed on Theo's backpack. "Ready to go home?" asked Theo. The orb was silent, but Theo knew the answer. He helped the orb into his backpack and slung it over his shoulder. "Hey, Theo!" called a voice from near the building. It was Silas. Theo waved and then saw that Silas was motioning for Theo to come to him. Theo walked over slowly, wondering if Silas had seen or heard anything. "What are you doing here?" Silas asked politely. "Oh, I'm, Theo wasn't sure what to say. He didn't want to lie. "I'm just doing research." Was that a lie? Maybe. Theo thought maybe he should just tell Silas. At least then he would have someone to talk to about this. "What are you doing out of school?" he asked. "Just saying hi," Silas said. "I saw you at the window. I'll get back to class now." "Wait," Theo said. "Do you know Carly? She has orange hair." "Not really," said Silas. "I think I know who she is, but we're not in the same class. Why? How do you know her?" "I met her last week. I'm meeting her after school tomorrow to tell her something." "Could you be there too?" "Sure, Theo. I'll see you tomorrow." Silas turned around and went back inside. Theo walked home and got there before Papa was back from work. He put the orb on the staircase and went to find Mama, who was in the backyard watering the garden. "Hey, Mama," said Theo. "Hi, son. How was the field?" "Good," said Theo. "I have 2 questions to ask you. The first one I meant to ask yesterday, but I forgot." "Fire away, my boy," said Mama as she stood and faced him. "I know someone at the big school. She's very nice. I think she's a little older than me. Anyways, she wants to hang out tomorrow after her school is done. That means I'd be there after the buzzer goes. And Silas is going to be there too. Is that okay?" "How do you know this girl?" asked Mama. "Papa and I met her last week when we went to the forest," said Theo. "Is she the one filling your head with all kinds of alien questions?" asked Mama. Theo laughed. "We haven't talked much about it yet, but I'll let you know if she turns out to be weird." Mama smiled. "Oh, Theo, weird is fine. So long as you're back by supper and stay on the school property. Back by 5 o'clock, okay? Deal, Mama." "What was your second question?" asked Mama. "It's a math one. If a year on Earth is 365 days, and a year on another planet is 690 days, then how many years would 5 years on the other planet be on Earth?" Mama laughed quite loudly. "That is a very interesting question, my boy. I couldn't answer off the top of my head. I'd need to get my calculator. Actually, you could do it if you want some more practice. Find out how many times a year on Earth would fit into a year on this other planet. Do that by dividing 690 by 365. "Okay," said Theo, thinking about doing that on the calculator. "Then take that number and times it by 5. Then you'll have your answer." "Sweet, thanks, Mama," Theo said as he ran off. "Oh, and Theo, can you check on Lydia? She's probably up from her nap. If she is, can you bring her out?" "Sure thing, Mama." Theo walked upstairs to Lydia's room. The orb popped out of the backpack and followed him. Sure enough, Lydia was making baby talk in her room. Theo opened the door and didn't even think to hide the orb from her. She giggled with excitement when she saw her brother and a big glowing green ball floating next to him. Theo saw that the dark room was lit with a green light, and then quickly shoved the orb behind him and switched on the light. "Good morning, baby. Nothing to see here." He took her out of her crib and brought her downstairs. She kept giggling and looking for the orb, who seemed to take a liking to her and kept changing colors to make her laugh. "Stay here, Mr. Ball," said Theo as he went outside. "Here, Mama," he said as he placed Lydia on the grass. Theo ran back inside into the homeschool room, where he pulled out the calculator and did as Mama had said. 9.5. 9.5 years old! You're my age! He shouted. "That's so cool! Even though you're 5 on your planet, you're 9 on mine." The orb buzzed around him. Suddenly, the phone began to ring in the house. "Hide!" yelled Theo. Mama walked into the house, holding Lydia, and answered the phone. Theo stood nervously in the other room. He didn't want Mama to know about the orb, but he did not like keeping it a secret. But he had started having so much fun with his new friend, and he was worried Mama wouldn't let him keep him around. Mama's phone call was short. "Theo," she called, "that was your coach. He can't make Tuesday's practice, so he wants to know if this Friday, tomorrow, works instead." I said yes, because you'll be there with Silas and that girl anyways. Practice starts at 4 o'clock. Coach said he'd take the team out for supper afterwards, but I'd like you to come straight home after practice. I'll have pizza ready. "Okay, Mama," Theo replied. Just then, Theo realized he was planning on telling Carly about the orb, a girl he had only met days ago, and yet he wouldn't tell his own parents. He felt awful. Should he tell his parents? Of course he should. But what if they took him away? Theo would lose the coolest friend he had ever had. But Theo knew it was better to tell the truth and suffer the consequences than to keep a secret. He would tell his parents, even if the orb wasn't ready. Theo just didn't know when. Throughout the next day, Theo was excited for his time with Carly and Silas, but he was also nervous. After school, he spent some more time teaching the orb words to spell. But when the school's buzzer sounded, he got even more nervous. Kids of all sizes came out. Some walked home, others ran to the playground, and some of the bigger kids went into the field. Finally, an orange-haired girl walked up to Theo and his soccer ball orb, saying, "A promise is a promise." "Hi, Carly," Theo said. "Okay, super homeschooler, how do you float?" "It's because of a friend of mine. But I can't show you now. There are too many kids around." Just then, Silas walked up to them. "Hey, Theo," he said. "Hi," said Theo. "Silas, this is Carly. Carly, Silas is my cousin." "Cool, nice to meet you," Carly said. "Can he float too?" "Float?" Silas said. "Are we going swimming or something?" Carly laughed. "Does he even know?" she asked Theo. "Neither of you know," Theo said. Silas was family, and Carly was really nice. Sure, he was nervous about telling them, but he was just as excited. But how could he show them the orb without anyone else seeing? "We could go back to my house," Carly suggested. Theo wondered if she could read his mind. "My dad won't be home until this evening." "I don't think that's a good idea, if it's just the 3 of us," Theo said. Suddenly, he wished so badly he hadn't come, and that he had told Mama about all of this. He was about to tell Silas and Carly, but Mama and Papa didn't even know. He wasn't sure what to do. Maybe he would change his mind and just go home. "Yeah, sure," said Carly. "I guess you're right." She seemed a little sad. Theo then remembered Carly's mom. "It's just you and your dad at home?" "Well, yes and no," she replied. "I have 2 big brothers, but they live out of town. My mom is sick right now, so she's staying with Grandma and Grandpa." "Oh," said Theo. "I'm sorry, that sounds kind of scary." "I don't really like talking about it," said Carly. "Besides, we had a deal. I stay quiet about you being super kid, and you show me how to float like a balloon." "What?" Silas yelled. "Are you 2 crazy or something?" "Well," Theo started, "I can't show you guys, but I can tell you. The fireball that fell from the sky last week is an actual person ball. He's an alien that floats around. He's green, but sometimes other colors when he feels differently, and he's my age." Carly stared at Theo for a few seconds, and then she began to laugh. Silas started laughing too. "That is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. An alien ball." Carly started walking away. I'm mad you're lying, but I'll figure out a way to get the truth from you, boy. That's a promise. I really have no idea what just happened, Silas said. I'll see you at church on Sunday. And then Silas walked away too. Theo's stomach churned. He had told the truth, and yet they didn't believe him. He really thought Carly could be a friend. He felt a little sad that probably wasn't going to happen. Theo was too embarrassed to go home, so he sat by the soccer field, holding on. Beep! So he sat by the soccer field, holding the orb until his teammates started to gather. Soon his coach arrived, and soccer practice began. The orb sat inside Theo's backpack, which leaned against a bench on the side of the field. He watched them practice soccer very closely. First, they did 2 laps around the field, then they did drills, running around cones, passing the ball, and taking turns kicking the ball into the net. Finally, it was everybody's favorite part, a practice game. Half the team wore yellow pennies to indicate they were on one side of the field, and the others didn't. Now there were 2 teams of boys, and a game of soccer began. Near the end, Theo was knocked down by a boy on the other team. It was a rough push, so it counted as a penalty, and Theo was given the opportunity to have a penalty kick. He stood with his team behind him and the goalie in front of him. He charged to kick the ball, but just before his foot touched the ball, it flew forward. Theo tripped and fell to the ground, but the ball soared through the air toward the net. The goalie dove to stop it, but then the ball turned in midair and flew past the other side of the goalie into the net. Theo's side of the team cheered. Theo stared at the ball closely. It jumped up and down suddenly, and then Theo knew. Somehow the orb had switched places with the real ball and helped Theo score. But Theo didn't like this. He felt like they had cheated. The game soon ended, and practice was over. On the way home, Theo marched into the patch of trees he had first found the orb in. "You can't do that," he yelled. The orb turned yellow. "You cheated!" The orb floated still. He turned green again and lunged upward, imitating the soccer players, cheering by making a whooping sound. "I know we scored, but not fairly. Don't you know what it means to earn something? Sometimes you get the goal, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It's a part of training." "Papa taught me that," Theo said. The orb stooped down and turned blue. He hummed sadly and then floated a couple of feet away from Theo. "What are you running from, buddy?" Theo asked, taking note of the sadness. "I can't keep you a secret any longer." The orb twirled around and turned yellow. "You told me you're afraid of where you're from, right?" Theo asked. The orb nodded. "Well, how did you get here? You said you flew, but did you come in a spaceship?" The orb turned from side to side and then rotated upward, looking at the sky. "The fireball Carly and I saw. It was just you? No spaceship?" The orb nodded again. "I was just about to say that's crazy, but I'm literally talking to an alien," Theo shouted. "Are there other orbs after you or something?" The orb quickly turned invisible and hid behind Theo. Someone was coming. "Who's an alien?" a boy asked as he stomped through the bushes with a few friends. They were on Theo's soccer team. "Nobody, Chuck," Theo said, hanging his head. "I was just playing." Chuck was the team goalie, and the orb and Theo had just humiliated him. "Playing by yourself? Sounds about right," Chuck said while his friends laughed. "That was a ridiculous shot, Theo. I know you cheated. I just can't figure out how," Chuck said as he walked toward Theo. I'm sorry, Chuck," Theo said. "Oh, you will be," Chuck said. "Hey!" Carly yelled as she entered the clearing. "Are you boys bothering my friend?" she asked sternly. "Chuck, she's a 6th grader," one of Chuck's friends whispered. "We should go before we miss the pizza." "See you around, Theo," Chuck said as he and his friends left the forest. Theo bent over and held his knees, breathing heavily. Finally, he looked up and said, "Thanks, Carly." "Does that happen often?" Carly asked. "It's not too bad," Theo said timidly. "Well, that's probably another lie of yours." "Ah!" Carly suddenly screamed. She saw the orb. He had turned green and floated from behind Theo so she could see him. "What is that?" she yelled with terror. Theo jumped up and grabbed the orb and held him against his chest. "This is, the fireball that fell from the sky." "You were serious?" she asked. Her fear turned to excitement, and she walked right up to them and put her hands on the orb. "Yeah," Theo said. "Okay, Mr. Ball, show her what you can do." The orb floated up to one of the tree branches and spun and hummed, as if trying to show off. "Whoa!" Carly said while she laughed. "What is it?" she asked. "I don't really know," Theo began. "I know he's an alien, and I found him in the forest. He was hiding in that creek over there." "Wait, the forest was cleaned up by the government people. How'd you find it?" Carly asked. "I don't know. I just did," he replied. "Do you think they're still looking for this orb?" she asked. "I don't know," Theo replied. "I hope not. I kind of like him." The orb then floated next to Carly and turned orange to mimic her natural hair color. The orb spun slowly, almost as if he were stroking her hair. "I think he likes you," Theo said. Carly smiled wildly as she reached out and put her hand against the side of the orb. She laughed and felt around the orb's circular frame. "This is so cool," she said. "What is he?" "He's an alien. Told me he's from space," Theo said. "Well, that part's obvious." "And how do you know it's a he?" Carly asked with a smile. "He told me that also. Besides, he doesn't play with my hair," Theo said with a chuckle. Carly laughed too. Theo stood watching the two of them playing together. He loved to think these two were now his friends. After a few more minutes, Theo realized he had to get home quickly. "I've got to go," he said. "Mama was expecting me after practice." The orb gently bumped Carly's cheek and then floated toward Theo and went into his backpack. "What a sweet little space ball," Carly said. "Say hi to your mama for me, Theo." "Do you want to come home for supper and meet her?" Theo asked. "Oh, I would really, really like that," she said. "Well, then let's go," Theo said. The two started out of the forest. Theo saw the black car still parked down the street. "Don't look, but I think that's the government," he said to Carly. She looked, and then quickly turned away. "Totally the government," she said. Theo didn't want to say what he was about to say, but he knew he had to. "Carly, please don't tell my parents about him, about the orb. They don't know yet." "Ooh, a secret, yay," she replied. "Well, secrets are bad," Theo started. "I know it's wrong of me not to tell, but I don't know how or when is the right time." Theo felt so guilty. He wondered if Carly would tell his parents, and that things would be even worse for him, because he wasn't the one to tell the truth. How he wished he had simply explained what the soccer ball was on that first night. "Theo," Carly said suddenly as she stopped walking, "I don't think I should come over." "Why not?" asked Theo. "Well, sometimes my dad gets home early on Fridays. He might not know where I am. I just think I shouldn't today." "But you'll be home alone until he does come," Theo said. "Yeah," said Carly quietly. "I am used to that, you know." Theo was silent for a while. The two stood there on the sidewalk looking around. "It's okay, Carly. Another time, right?" "Thanks, Theo." "Maybe one day I'll meet your mama too," he said. Carly looked a little surprised by his comment. "Maybe," she began. "Dad says her sickness is in the mind. He talks to me like I'm not 11 sometimes. She's got early onset dementia. That's what the truth is. Grandpa's a tough old guy and he's always home, so everyone thought it'd be best for me and her if we lived apart. I don't think so, but no one asked me." "Oh, Carly, I don't know what to say," said Theo. "Well, you listening is more than most, so thanks," she said. "All right, I'm going now." She circled behind Theo and patted the orb. "An alien," she said. "Still can't believe it." As she walked away, she turned and called out to Theo, "Can we hang out again soon?" Theo was surprised. He had never been asked that before. "Yeah, sure." So I can see the orb again, Carly yelled back. Tomorrow's Saturday. I think I'll be reading at the ice cream shop in town. Come find me if you get bored. Okay, said Theo. Theo and the orb hurried home. Theo joined his family for a supper of delicious homemade pizza. The orb stayed in Theo's room. How was practice, Theo? Asked Papa. Fine, said Theo. His secret burned inside of him. He could barely speak. Carly knew now, and yet his parents didn't. Theo knew it was wrong. And your time with Carly? Asked Mama. How was that? Tell us about her. She's really cool. Some of the boys were mean to me after practice, but she scared them away. She's a 6th grader. Oh, Theo, Mama began as she stood from her seat and rounded the table to hug him. I'm sorry they were mean. Did you tell your coach? No, Mama. But I have to tell you something about it, Theo began, and his words were fast. He couldn't hold back the truth any longer, and he didn't know where to start, so he just started. Chuck thought I cheated at a penalty kick because the ball flew away it shouldn't and couldn't, and I did cheat. Oh, Mama and Papa, I have something terrible to tell you. It's not terrible, but it's terrible I didn't tell you. But I tried, but it didn't work when I first brought him home, and suddenly there was 5 loud thumps on the door, and Theo stopped his speaking. He was already crying, but the knocking startled him. I'll get it, Papa said. Mama stood by Theo, holding him close. Theo could hear Papa open the door and heard the deep voices of older men as they introduced themselves. Theo, said Mama, why don't you head to your room and calm down a bit while Papa and I speak to these men? Theo listened to Mama and saw that the man at the door wore a black suit and he had 2 RCMP officers with him. Theo ran upstairs, afraid they were there to take away the orb. Theo hid behind the upstairs wall and listened carefully to the conversation. We recently conducted a survey of a nearby forest, said one man. We are wondering if you or anyone you know may have gone into the forest within the past 2 weeks, and if they may have found anything. Well, my son and I went to look at the forest a little over a week ago, Papa began. He thought he saw something fall from the sky. We didn't go inside at the time. As soon as I saw that something had happened, I called the police. I gave a statement that night to a constable that had come by. We went to the forest after you had cleared out, but didn't find anything. Thank you, said the man. A research satellite fell there. We recovered most of it, but are missing an important aspect of its hard drive. Are you sure you have not come into contact with anything related to this event? No, sir. Everything has been normal, Papa said. Thank you for your cooperation, the man replied. Here's my card. We'll be in contact should we have any further questions. Theo heard Papa close the door. He then knew there was nothing else to do but to tell Mama and Papa everything from the start. He quickly ran into his room, put the orb in his arms, and then ran out and stood at the top of the stairs. Mama and Papa, he said quickly. Yes, Theo, Mama said. I did find something in that forest. Theo held out the orb who had disguised himself as a soccer ball again. You found that soccer ball in there? Papa asked. It's probably not worth mentioning to those men, Mama said. That's just it, Theo said. This is not a soccer ball.
You just listened to an excerpt from my new book, ORB, a sci-fi story for kids. The full book is available for purchase on Amazon, or you can listen to it all ad-free on patreon.com or on Spotify. Links are in the description.